Welcome back to the Road to Great Health podcast, where we discuss natural solutions to today's worst health problems. I got my voice back.
And we're back in business.
Last week was rough, man. And if you guys saw that podcast, thanks for sticking with us on that one. That one was rough. I'm Dr. Kevin Linderman with Dr. Kevin's Wellness Clinic in South Louisiana, and I'm joined by my mentor, Dr. Rob DeMartino of Las Vegas. Doc, how's it going today?
Doing great. Happy you got your voice back. Happy to be here. Ready to talk about some beautiful sunlight.
I'm like you. I don't do well when I can't talk, man.
I barely can function in the clinic, right? I talk all day.
Right. And then if you tie my hands together, I can't talk either way. So I have to have my hands to talk, you know?
Yeah.
And you being Italian, I know you get it.
It's way worse.
Yeah, it's way worse. So I wanted to spend a couple minutes and kind of recap what we've covered so far, because we've covered a lot. The first concept we wanted to introduce you guys to was energetic debt, which means your energy system is broken and you're spending more energy than your body can make. And that's the first step to chronic disease. And then we talked about how that leads into autoimmune problems, because as your body gets more and more dysfunctional, your tissues get more unhealthy and your immune system is trying to clean up that unhealthy tissue. Then we went into what's actually doing the damage. And we talked about things like electromagnetic fields. And last week we talked about blue light. And so today we wanted to kind of flip that coin over and talk about healthy light. Because make no mistake, and Dr. Rob, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we are like a big solar panel. We are light beings. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. There is no life on this planet without the sun.
Yeah.
Right? There's no life on this planet. If the food chain would completely fold upon itself, we would fold upon itself. I mean, look at, again, any dystopian movie. There's gray, there's no sun, right? Even in marketing, like they try to like make you feel bad, like it's a gray outside, like you're indoors, you're under fluorescent lighting, and when they want you to think of something else, you're out in the field. Right. It doesn't exist without it. We are built to be in that sun and way more often than we are now.
Right. And one of my favorite sayings whenever I'm talking to patients is back in the hunter-gatherer days, because it, yes. It really is true. Think about how our brain and body and nervous system and immune system and stress system and all of these things have developed over thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of years. And then, boom, we have 2025. And how radically different things are. And that's really what we're getting to, is that we are living in this weird alien planet that is unlike anything that our body has ever been developed around. And ladies and gentlemen, it's making us sick. And that's what we're trying to get at.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a patient today and she was laughing. She's like, it's almost like a full-time job in order to try to keep yourself well with all these things. And I said to her, like, the funny thing about it is it's only a full-time job because we live so differently now.
Yeah.
Right. You wouldn't have to tell people to do this. Like, this is just the way it happened. And she's like, it's really true. Because it would just be what happened, right? Like the ideology of like, oh, we have to make time to go out and get sun. People are like, well, I don't have time for that. I'm like, you would have never had to make time for that. That's where you were.
Yeah. Humans have been in sun since there were humans on Earth.
Forever, right? And this is part of Darwin always talked about the conditions of existence, right? What does it take to survive and exist? And then the lunacy of that is that we're here in 2025 and we're telling people whatever you do, stay out of the sun.
Right.
Or slather yourself in chemicals that will block the sunlight. And, we're watching everyone's health completely get destroyed from that. But we're doubling down on that message. And that's half the point of wanting to do a podcast like these, is just to try to get people to realize that, this is bad messaging, man. And it's going to come at the expense of your health, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, you look at all these recommendations over the last 100 years. Stay out of the sun, wear sunscreen, avoid salt, don't eat eggs. I mean, it's like even a broken clock's right twice a day, right?
Yeah, and when you're no one's right 100% of the time, but no one's wrong this much either. After a while, it has to start to be purposeful, right? You have to have that feeling that it's purposeful.
Yeah. There has to be. At some point, you would think they would get something right. And so Today we wanted to really go into sunlight and red light and why we use that in our practices and what we're trying to replace and the benefits. And, Doc, the first question I have for you is, okay, I walk outside as the sun is coming up and I look at the sunrise. What happens to my physiology? Take us through that.
So that's designed to basically be our cup of coffee, right? In the morning, like everyone jokes around, like I need coffee to wake up. The frequencies in that light is designed to stimulate us, right? It's designed to wake us up. It's designed to pump up our stress hormones so that we become awake and we become aware. It's got certain frequencies of light that will make us stimulate the production of hormones, and that's gender hormones. So everyone's wondering why everyone's gender hormone panels are completely trashed. It's because they're just not seeing this type of light. But really the most important thing is that type of light that you will get close to early morning sunrise is one of the most healing and beneficial frameworks of light for our mitochondria, which is, again, our energy generators that run the whole system, right? The more energy we have, the better off we typically go, the longer we live, the better quality we live. That frequency of light is incredibly powerful for that. And we just skip it.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people never even come close to seeing it. I mean, I can't tell you, 3 times this week already I've had conversations with people that say, well, I go to work before the sun comes up and I go home after the sun goes down. Yeah. Well, that's not going to work.
Right.
And those, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, do you have colleagues who go outside to take smoke breaks? Yeah, great. You can go outside to take sun breaks. Right. If they can go outside to make themselves unhealthy, you can go outside to make yourself healthy. And it's funny just because of how just disconnected we've got from that. But that might be one of the most powerful things that somebody could do for themselves, is making sure that not only do they see that sunlight, but make sure it's the first light that you see. Right. Because your body is very specific about when it does things. It is a very specific clock system inside of it that it knows what time it is and it needs to know when to do certain things. Doing the right thing at the wrong time is almost as detrimental as doing the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. Because think of it this way, like if you got really stimulated and you woke up in the middle of the night while you were sleeping, it's not a bad thing to wake up. It's not the right time to do it, and it's equally damaging. So your body uses this light frequencies in the morning to know what time it is, what it needs to be doing, where it is in space and arrangement. And that's really important for setting those clocks, because most of the people, when we check them, we created an entire biology around this called chronobiology, right? The timing of the way the body does things. Most people's bodies have no idea where they are. And the way that you start doing that is by getting your eyes and your skin in the game and exposed first thing in the morning so you can set that clock. Great. It's 6 a.m. I know that now. Now I know how to move forward. Versus if you look at your phone, and we've talked about this, now your body says, oh, it's noon. Well, you just lost 6 hours, right? You do very different things at noon. You don't make hormones. When you get that middle of the day sunlight, your body stops your gender hormone production. That's purposeful. So, and people, again, all they see is that middle of the day sun, whether it's actually outside or just on their phones or their screens or their indoor lighting, and they wonder again why their hormone panels are just completely trashed. It is that simple. It just becomes complicated because we've made it complicated.
Right. Yeah, last night I was hosting my new patient class where I have all my new patients come together and I teach them all these things. And I told them, I said, if you guys ever pull up here early in the morning and I'm just standing out in the parking lot looking up in the sky like a weirdo, now you understand why. And I think it's really little things. For example, I was driving to work. I'm usually here either before sunrise or right at. And I was driving to work and the sun was just peeking over the horizon to my right-hand side. So I just rolled the window down, and every stoplight, I just stopped and looked at it. And then if I got out of the truck, I'll stop for 5 or 10 minutes and just look up at the sun. And so, we want to do as much as we can.
Yeah. And obviously if it's cold where you are, the sun and light is very cool, and I'll save you the physics, but even if you crack your window open in your car, even just a little bit, that sunlight will make it through there,
Yeah.
right? So you're like, oh, I'm going to get some through the glass. You'll actually get a lot of sunlight. So it doesn't even have to be, oh, it's freezing cold and it's snowing and I got my windows all the way open and people are going to look at me like I'm nuts. Trust me, I get the other end. In Vegas, where it's 115 degrees outside and I got my windows down all the way around. People look at me like I'm crazy. But you can even just do it a little crack and that sunlight will make it in. But obviously, sun also comes with a lot of fear, right? Part of that is propaganda where they're trying to make you terrified of the sun. But like we talked about before, it is a very powerful medium. But the more of this early morning red light that you get, the healthier that you get exposed to the skin. It primes your body to be able to absorb the ultraviolet light, which comes more towards the middle of the day. Now, that's the type of light that's going to tan you. That's the type of light that's going to make melanin on your skin, which is super duper important. That's the type of light that's going to raise your vitamin D levels and your nitric oxide levels. But the problem is we need that red light to prime the body for that UV light. So most people don't get any red light, and even if they do get UV light, they go right into it and their body's not ready for it. Right. Again, we're designed to be out there all day and just constant exposure to this, not in these small chunks. So you have to keep that in mind, but it helps you limit the fear of the sun when you know the rules of the game and you know exactly how to do it in a way that's going to make it gets you the most amount of benefit with the least amount of risk.
Yeah, I was talking to a patient a few months ago who is a construction worker outside, and I was talking to him about this, and he said, "Oh, I'm outside in the sun all the time," and his wife goes, "You have a hard hat and sunglasses on, and you got cancer from that." And so his eyes and his skin were on two different pages, right?
Yeah. Sunglasses, I think I've said this before, is one of the worst inventions in the history of mankind. And I actually kind of got into a little bit of a tussle with somebody online because they were going on and on about stay out of the sun, skin cancer awareness, melanoma, all these different types of things. And the profile pictures, these giant sunglasses that cover, the entire face. And, again, you have to know how to use these things because your eyes and your skin want to tell the same story. And if you cover your eyes and it makes it think it's dark, your skin's going to react like it's dark and you're going to burn very quickly. I can't tell you how many times I have conversations with patients that it's amazing how much better I do in the sun when I ditched my sunglasses. Yeah. I can handle so much more sun. I don't burn. I don't even think about it. I mean, to the point where my kids, who are, obviously raised very differently with all these ideas, my son will look around and say, 80% of the people have their sunglasses on. Mm-hmm. We were on vacation and we were at the beach and we were down there at sunrise. My son and I were down there at sunrise, doing that whole thing. And he's looking around and people are slathering themselves with suntan lotion. Now, there's no UV light at that time of day that's going to give them sunburns. Right. And he's like, what are they doing? He's 12. He's like, what are they doing? And I'm like, they just don't know, buddy. Right. They just don't know. It's commonplace to him. It's all he ever has known. But it's wild to watch people. And when I tell the sunglasses stories, people are fascinated by that. Yeah. They think that's the coolest thing they've ever heard. But it's so simple and it makes so much sense. But again, you go out, you see pretty much everybody's got sunglasses on.
Right. And a lot of people wear sunglasses all the time.
Yeah. And I haven't had a pair of sunglasses in 10 years. I don't even know where they are.
Yeah. I got rid of mine 3 or 4 years ago after talking to you about this. So, if you back up again to the hunter-gatherer days, we were sleeping on the ground and the sun would pop over the horizon and hit our skin and our eyes, which would tell us the day is here. We need to wake up. We need to fight off predators. We need to, go have energy to search for food. And so that's what we're really talking about, getting back to that sort of the way your brain was actually developed to function. And, me being a big deer hunter, I actually experienced this in real life because, you're sitting in the deer stand before the sun comes up and you just feel terrible. You're tired. And then as soon as the sun pops over the horizon, you just get you wake up, you get this burst of energy. The whole woods wake up, actually, the birds and everything starts chirping, the squirrels start moving. And it's that early morning red light that activates that whole natural pathway.
Yeah, and it's so healing for us. And we always say heal in the red. Yeah. You heal in that red light. You just do. And it's funny because you don't have to tell animals this.
Right.
They just know, right? They know how to do it. It's instinctual. They know how to do it. And we do too. We've just lost it because we have these big brains and we can make bad decisions about it, or tell people to make bad decisions that they trust. But you really need to be healing in that red. It's what drives the production of that. And it's amazing when people make those changes, they notice it right away. They notice it so quickly. They're like, man, I felt so much better. And even now, it's not that cold for us. It's like 60 degrees here now, even though we're in the middle of December. But it's still pretty sunny. But we're at the time frame where we have a low light era, right? We have about 6 or 8 weeks in Vegas now where no matter how much time in the middle of the day you spend outside, the sun is not at the angle that's going to make vitamin D. So people call that flu season. It's low light season.
Yeah.
Right. That's why they tell you if your vitamin D is good, you won't get the flu. Well, when you're in a situation where there's no sun to get vitamin D, you get a flu season. Yeah. Right. But it's so funny because I keep talking to patients and like I feel like not as good as I did, and I'm like, yeah, well, because it's just the situation of where we live. And then they're like, yeah, I can't wait for that sun to come back around. I can't wait to sun. Once you sink back to it, though, it gets addicting.
It does.
Because you feel great in it. Yeah. You feel great in it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can imagine a human development. So we talked about last week that we need darkness before bed. So the sun goes down at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We start making melatonin at 10. We need 8 hours of repair. 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The red light comes up at 6, hits our skin and eyes, produces energy and everything we need to take on the day. And so that is the big circadian rhythm that we try to get our patients back into so that they can activate all of those natural repair processes. That's why this is so important. And Doc, I know you do it, I do as well. I tell my patients light management is the single most important thing you can do for us.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to get well, right? And the coolest thing about it is trying to get well or trying to stay well. It's the same story. Right. So being like, well, what do I have to do after this? Well, learn to do it now, because if you keep doing this, you'll never see me again. And, I'm very nice people, but I hope you have better things to do than come to our clinics with chronic diseases, right? Like if you anchor down to this, and I've done this for a long time, right? So have you. You see the patients who they buy into it right away, they start doing it immediately, and they cruise through care. Yeah. And then you get the other people that it takes you like 3 or 4 months to kind of convince them to start doing that sort of stuff, and then they do it, and then all of a sudden it's a very different outcome. And then of course you got the people who don't do it at all. But it's an amazing thing of that once you start to manage your light diet, so to speak, trumps so many different things, because everything could be perfect. But again, if you don't have enough power and you don't have enough during the day and you don't have enough darkness at night to heal, right? You're not going to fix a car engine with it running.
Right.
Right? You have to be able to shut down. So when we talk about circadian rhythm, everyone thinks that means when their alarm clock goes up, so when they know to go to work or not. It's nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with your body knowing what time it is and when it needs to do certain things and not skip steps. Most of us are skipping massive steps.
Yeah. Now, Doc, one of the ways that we measure this is through a saliva test where we measure nitric oxide, correct? And by the way,
so
they don't ever look for that. Any other clinic. We have a specific test we do to test for this.
You're talking about Nobel Prizes won for nitric oxide. At the end of the day, you're talking about the number one killer of Americans is heart disease. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you this too. So before we even talk about nitric oxide is made from UVA light, right? So that's UVA is the strongest. As we move from that red morning light into the UV spectrum, there'll be red light, UVA, UVB, which is where you make vitamin D, and then back to UVA, and then back to red light at the end of the day. So again, nitric oxide, one of the most protective things that you can possibly do against heart disease. But here's the actual studies that they published. There is a 40% less mortality rate the more sunlight someone gets. And we measure that directly through vitamin D. Mm-hmm. Right now, the interesting thing is when somebody took vitamin D, they did not get the mortality benefits. Right. So it is not something that we can cheat and say, well, you just take this in a vitamin versus not. But if we told people to avoid the sun, for every 1 case of melanoma that you would avoid, you would kill 75 people from heart disease.
Yeah, I've read that.
That's the stats.
Yeah.
That's the numbers. And you'll hurt 225 other people will get sick, not necessarily die.
Yeah.
Now, I will even argue, too, if the person uses the sun correctly, that melanoma case probably never happens either. Right. So I'm not trying to downplay the melanoma case, but what I'm saying is this ideology of avoiding that for that, I mean, it is going to be a catastrophic thing. And nitric oxide, important to measure, important to know. It goes back to the sunlight story. And again, you don't hear people talk about nitric. There's lots of companies out there that sell nitric oxide supplements, but you never hear anybody talk about that fact that, I mean, I went to a conference, they talked about it for an hour, and then they never mentioned once that it's made by UVA light.
Right.
I was so upset. I'm going, we're not even going to mention this. I mean, I know we're hawking supplements here, and that's fine. Like, there's a time and place for that. I'm like, but we're not even going to mention the fact that this is a light-based molecule.
Right.
But it's so important to keep your heart healthy, your blood vessels healthy, your blood flow healthy. Again, entire books and Nobel Prizes given just on that one molecule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so for you guys listening, the difference in philosophy of your regular wellness office and the Beyond Functional Medicine program that Dr. Rob created is it's easy to measure your nitric oxide and go, take this nitric oxide supplement. That's like paying someone to do push-ups for you. Then you're dependent on a supplement, just like you were dependent on a medication. That's not what we try to do. We try to fix your body to make its own nitric oxide. So then you become healthier long-term and not propping up a failing system with the next latest and greatest supplement. And that's why we don't talk about supplements so much like most wellness practitioners, is because our goal is to actually repair the systems in your body instead of just supplementing everything.
Yeah, I think it's really important because I think one of the greatest ways somebody has really, truly freedom is through health.
Right.
Right. I mean, look at the bankruptcy stats. Most of the bankruptcy stats are because of healthcare costs.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't want someone to be dependent upon a doctor. I don't want them to be dependent upon a drug. I don't want them to be dependent upon a supplement. I don't want them to be dependent upon me. My business model is probably not that great, right? Because my job is to obsolete myself.
Right. Exactly.
But I feel it's really important. Like, I always tell people, my job is to help you catch up. Right? What you would do in this, if you put all this into place, would just take you a really long time to heal. We're going to expedite that process. We're going to get you fixed. But these are the things that you're going to anchor down and do forever. And if you do them, and you do them with your family, and you tell your kids this, and you tell your friends and family this, we're going to have a significantly greater health outcome for the country. And it's there's a time and place for supplements. There's a time and place for medications. Don't get me wrong. Right. But at the end of the day, you cannot win a game that you don't know the rules to. Right. I mean, I am shocked every single day when I talk to people and they don't know some of these really important things that are keys to the game. And once they find them out, when they sink down and they do it, it makes all the difference in the world.
Right. It's almost like it sounds too easy for people. You mean I can just ground myself and get sun and do these certain things and it will help me get better? And it's yes, that is what we're saying, is get your body back to nature, back the way your systems were designed to run. We're charged by the sun. We're grounded to the earth. Our bodies should not be full of, chemicals, junk, and toxins and, infections and all this crazy stuff that we have these days.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to a conference the other day and they were talking about, there's no such thing as a healthy tan. And I'm like having a heart attack in the listening to this because I'm like, my gosh, it's like one of the greatest things that you could do for yourself. We talked a lot about electromagnetic fields, last week in man-made electromagnetics. One of the most protective thing that we have against all these man-made electromagnetic fields is melanin, the coloring on our skin. So I always talk to my patients about, look, this is about responsible color change. I'm not talking about burning. I'm not trying to talk about doing this overnight. But when you do this and you do this regularly, what will eventually start happening is your skin color will change. It will stay that way. And eventually you don't even start thinking about sunlight and stuff because your body can just tolerate it. Now it takes time for it to be able to do that. That doesn't even get into, when people eat processed fats and seed oils and all those different types of things, their skin's going to burn a lot faster. But the darker you can get your skin, there is direct outcomes to healthier populations, right? And that will always, we measure that with vitamin D as a proxy. But again, it's gotten too simple. Like you said, everyone just takes vitamin D as a supplement.
Yeah.
Makes it look good on paper, but you do not get those benefits.
Right.
It has to be earned through the power of the sun. Now, people sometimes don't live in places with high sunlight. Right? Now, the body can adapt to that over the course of time. But if you got somebody who's got real dark skin living in a place with real low light, I promise you that they're going to get sick sooner than they want to.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it matters of where you do these things, but just the same way that you can supplement vitamins, you can supplement light.
Yeah.
Right. Light therapy devices, things like that. I talk to people about that all the time. Like, well, I live in a place where there's no light. What do I do? Well, then you got to supplement light.
Yeah.
Is it optimal? No. Is it better than the rest? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Right. And I think that's the line too, because a lot of times it gets real specific. Like, well, it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to be on the high side of good.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we use like the Emerson light machines and, all the devices that we do is just to try to hack the body to activate some of these healing mechanisms so that we can get sick people truly well instead of depending on medication or depending on a bunch of supplements.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the same thing. Even with this ideology now of like peptides are starting to get a big traction in natural medicine. Right? This is another methodology of control, right? You're not required to take peptides to be well, right? That's where my head goes. Can it help? Yeah. Are you required to do that for health? No, it's a ridiculous sentiment. There are things we are required to do for health. And if we do those first, then you can play around with whatever else you want. But we're flipping it. And it just becomes completely backwards. And we're seeing the outcomes of that now.
Yeah. So in closing, just some real simple home recommendations. See the sunrise with your feet touching the ground, taking some deep breaths as many mornings as you absolutely can. And on the mornings you can't, get a few minutes here, a few minutes there. Stop 3 or 4 minutes before walking in your office and just look up into the sun. Roll your window down when you're driving, like we talked about, small changes. And then get enough midday sun that you're tanning. You may have to start with 10 minutes and then next week 15 and then 20. But make sure you're getting enough midday sun where you're producing melanin for all the reasons that we talked about. And then make sure your nights are dark and you're blocking the light in your eyes at night. And this is how your body runs all of its healing and circadian and hormonal systems and so many other things, right?
You do this and you will be 80% of the way there.
Right.
Those few things will get you 80% of the way there.
And then Dr. Rob and I's job is just to get anything else that's in the way out of the way and help promote some of these systems to dig themselves out of a hole. Because make no mistake, chronic health problems mean that your body or your health or however you want to say it has dug itself in a hole. You could label that hole whatever you wanted. I could diagnose it holitis. That's not going to get you out of that hole. So our program revolves around how do we get your health out of this hole and get you on a healthy, long pathway for a good life. Right, Doc?
Holitis. I like it. That's going to be my new diagnosis
Holitis.
For people. I like that.
Good. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us once again. Make sure you catch next week's podcast. Dr. Rob, thanks a lot. We'll see you guys next week.